Let's take a look at all these assembled cables. Now this is for my first Fightstick build, not for the one we've been discussing, but a lot of it is going to be what's going into your sticks, and I'll explain some differences. So the first thing is, because I am using the Retro board, we have this RJ45 to RJ45 cable, and that connects from our pass-through to the Retro board. So that's pretty cut and dry what it is. You can sleeve it if you want. Because mine is so long, I don't feel like doing it. Up next is, you've seen the regular 20 pin to 20 pin. Now this is my really gross extended sleeve version that has a few other features. Now I don't have the 2x10 DuPont connector, so I use two 9x1s and then a 2x1, so this fits perfectly fine. You can do other combinations, 2x2s, and then a 6x2 came in my kit. I just don't have that 20 pin box. And I also have a little extension off here for the ground. One leads in, so you can see it leads into this Wago 211 connector, and that way all the grounds go into the same thing. Now this leads into, well, not quite that, a connector for a switch that controls lighting. So this is power, and these two are grounds in and out, and there you go. So on the end of the pins 19 and 20 of the Brook board, you have two slots for power leads, hence that's why I used red here. Now, I know I don't have all the same colors that usual 20 pin harnesses do, just make do with what I have. Anyhow, so this goes out to a switch, we'll connect later, that controls lighting, like I mentioned. So you've got a power lead, and that goes to a 2-pin DuPont that connects to the lead I connected to the LED wiring strip, and so on. This is the 8-button grounding harness, and then you have select, guide, and start, as well as a switch wiring for tournament lockout. And also I put power on here so I can get the LED working, as kind of mentioned in the switch section. So there's that. Then we have signal cables for our punch series, or no, sorry, that's our kick series, and our punch series up here. And that's pretty much it for the 20 pin. We also had the joystick connector wired in as well. So there's that. Now I also have a little extension lead that comes off the switch that will be connected from here. It goes, since it's a 3-pin, I use the top one there and continue this out. So when that switches off, start, guide, select, all don't work. That is a tournament lockout. This, I just kind of bundled up a ribbon cable to go to our unifier. I don't have two boards in here yet, but I will, and that makes it a little bit prettier, maybe? I don't know. This, so you'll notice I'm using these Wagos here for future expansion. This will connect to stick select, so you can choose whether you're using directional pad, left stick, or right stick on systems that support it. So all this does is we'll stick on the Velcro that's already mounted on the underside, and then connect the appropriate quick disconnects here. Now, when I get the second one, I already have a cable made to fill in the rest of these slots, and that's why I use this setup instead of just directly wiring to it. Same for turbo here, and the same for L3, R3 touchpad. So this assembly lets me just hook up two cables, and if I want to hook up the USB directly without doing the pass-through on the Retro, then I can absolutely do that. Sometimes that's been really helpful for playing on Mister, because for some reason it's not liked having two Retro controllers tied in at the same time, and the only way I can play is if I connect my USB directly. Or it could be a PS Audio Plus, or the Xbox control board, the wireless, what have you. I'm likely going to put in a USB later once I have some funds. Anyway, this is the USB and Retro Select, so you'll notice this is a 3-pin DuPont connector to a selection of quick disconnects that are large. They'll hook up to another one of these guys, the 24mm SCI switches. pretty cut and dry as to what that is. So there you go. Technically, it's supposed to only use 2 wires, but if you put one on the first pin, that actually does supply power. So I'll show you that a little bit later. Okay, that's pretty much all of our wires. Turbo here. Let's go back just to make sure. Since I'm using that LED, we have ring terminals we'll put under the screws, and that'll supply signal and ground to it, as well as a connection to the buttons. And again, this is one of those things that if you want a true dual mod, I know the kit that's out there will do some dual mod with the 20 pin, but really nothing else. I think there is some stuff passed between the USB connection that I don't have out right now. It connects between say the USB and the Retro, but I found it's, again, if you connect through the Retro, it might work, but if you're connecting through the USB directly, then you have no L3, you have no turbo, you have no stick select, so it's a bad time for everybody. So that's why I do these kind of obnoxious Wago setups, where I have, one for blues, there you go. And I just tie it together with a strip of Velcro, the soft side, and I use the hook side on the stick itself, and this is, I think, ultimate industrial strength stuff, so it's probably never going to come off in my lifetime without me taking a scraper to it or something. So that's pretty much all the wires we have to put in for now. Later on, if I add a USB, there'll be more, but there you go. That's your wiring project. So you've got this mess, which is the 20 pin, 2 DuPont connectors at this end. Usually you're not going to use the power unless you want to wire some LED switches or otherwise have something that uses 5-volt power, and then you have 2 connectors for that. If I didn't need power, I could leave this off entirely, but since I have the LED switches, why not? And that goes to different connectors. Most of them are these button 2.8 millimeter or 0.110 inch quick disconnects, and I like the insulated ones. Get off there. This is that tournament lockout again. USB Retro starts with the 3-pin DuPont, ends in these 6.8 millimeter, I believe, quick disconnects, large boys. This is just a ground chain, basically, like we said on the tournament disconnect. 4-pin JST for turbo, and for the L3 R3 touchpad select. Now the Retro doesn't send anything over touchpad. It doesn't have any facility for touchpad, but I connect it anyway. The USB does, anyway. And turbo is it's a 4-pin JST PH, and it's kind of 2 breakout cables. So one goes to the button, which is what this will be, and one goes to the LED. Now I made the same cable essentially for for when I put in the USB, and all we need to do when we connect the light is just stack them on top of each other and we're good to go. Okay, I think that explains about every cable in here. We've talked about the 20 pin. This is the unifier 20 pin ribbon cable. So we'll show you what it looks like when everything's back in and just do a little tour and then we'll finish up. And here we go. Ostensibly, we are at the finished product here. Well, we haven't put the bottom on, but that's okay. What are we looking at? So, we don't have anything in this USB pass-through yet because we don't have the USB to add until later, which is fine. We do have RJ45 winds its way around and connects to our Retro board there. And then from here, we have our L3, R3, and touchpad buttons that are connected into the Wago. So later on, I can add that second cable to come in here into the free ports, and we're set to go. Now that gets slid over down through here under the unifier that's mounted in there and down into J10. So it's kind of hard to see. Yeah, good luck. J10 here. Anyway, next up we have a lighting switch, which is like that. So that
around the perimeter, it's probably not easy to see at all. Is a 5-volt LED strip that's just adhesive. I put it around the perimeter. We'll see how good a job that does of providing just some underlight. But, that's fine. So it has power, connects to there, and a ground out, and then a ground that runs back to a little Wago 211 here that's hidden underneath. What's next is turbo, and that has, again, a couple Wagos velcroed here. Can't really get it all the way back with the crowns in place, but, it's fine. The cover will make it so you can't see it anyway. And I do want to be able to extract it at some point to put in the second connector. But anyway, so half of that connector connects to this, and then there's little short wires that, just like these, little short wires from the Wagos to go into the button itself. And I found with the crowns, make sure you hold those buttons down while you're installing, because the terminals tend to kind of push out, and it doesn't like it. Anyway, so that'll run back to here and connect to the port next to that, which I think is J6. Anyhow, we also have the joystick, which again is that Korean 5-pin, so that's here, and it's running along this cable pathway. All right. So that's pretty much it on this side, because this last hole is filled. We have our turbo LED connected. Now with these E10s, the way you want to remember how to connect these is, I know I'm using a white wire for ground. That's probably making some of you flip just go insane. But I had a lot of white spare wire to use, so I did. Anyway, the ground wire goes on the bottom, the ground, and then the signal wire is going to be this little guy here on the other side that is exposed up to the socket, and then you just carefully screw these in. For these E10 bulbs, especially the blue ones I've found, you can twist them right off, and that's bad. Anyway, there's our Bitman Gaming status cable. So that's stuck under here and routed under. And then I have the unifier for when we have, that's really hard to see, I know. For when I have the secondary board in, that'll plug into the last 3 slot. Alright, so going down the other side, we have our start select guide. That gets routed down, and it shares a cable with the tournament lockout, since we have the ground come from, down here around into the switch, and then the ground out will come back out to here. So that way, when it's switched off, you don't have start select guide. So that's the entire purpose of the tournament lockout. Next down, we have the 3-way stick select. So it's really just connect one to each of the terminals on that. And again, for the full dual solution, I'm having the set of 3 Wagos, 3 pins each. So you have little leads that go to the switch itself, and then one cable that goes back to this guy, J3. Now, it's just an aside, it is odd that J3 uses a 4-pin connector, DuPont, but for some reason, it'll use 3 wires. So there's that. Anyway, then finally there's this guy here, which is the switch between the Retro and the UFB. I don't have the UFB yet, but it is still connected, so it's good to go in the future. Gotta doing as much as I can to future-proof. And then finally, we have connectors from the unifier. This is the punch chain, and then we have the kick chain. So how is there a good method for wiring this? Let's talk about that. As far as order, what do you want to tackle? It's kind of messy. What I recommend is trying to start up here first and just work your way around as you can. Now the thing is, some of these things, like if you start up here, that connects to the 20-pin chain, and that starts making a mess on its own. So there's some things that are just unavoidable. Some other things I ran into, I think I should have made these ground chains a little bit longer just for a little bit of slack, because I had 2 of them pull free, and it was, oh no, Luckily I was able to rescue it without having to rip it all out and then start over, but I think making it a little longer might relieve just a bit of tension on them. Not maybe just even half an inch would do the job, so there's that. Getting the insulated quick disconnects on this three-way switch, because I haven't mounted in that SANWA button, they're a little tight. I was worried it wouldn't fit without some dremeling, but with some wiggling, it went in and everybody's happy. That said, everything looks good. So I'm going to go test and we will show you the full finished product. I hope this wiring guide helped you. I know it doesn't cover every scenario, but it'll get you started making basic cables, basic wires, JST PHs, the DuPont connectors, etc. So there you go. Enjoy.